Thanksgiving in Austin always felt like a performance. Turkey carved with precision cranberry sauce in crystal bowls, and conversations rehearsed like lines from a bad play. My family knew how to put on a show, especially when there were guests. I sat at the far end of the long oak table next to the window that overlooked my dad's perfectly trimmed backyard. The air smelled like sweet potatoes and judgment. My name's Savannah Ray Bennett. I'm 29, the youngest in a proud Southern military family where feelings are folded up and locked away, like medals in a drawer. My father, Colonel Bennett, retired, sat at the head of the table, shoulders back like he was still in uniform. Across from me, my older sister, Victoria, corporate lawyer, Ivy League, the golden one. She hadn't even taken off her blazer. Probably didn't want to wrinkle it for the next power meeting. The dinner started the way it always did. Dad asking Victoria about her latest case, Mom refilling everyone's sweet tea like it was a contest, and me quietly chewing my cornbread, waiting for the moment they'd remember I existed. And then I said it. I'm thinking about buying a house. The words hung in the air like a dropped fork. For a second, no one said anything. Then my dad leaned back, laughed loud, and said, "Sweetheart, artists don't buy mansions." Victoria didn't even look up from her plate. She just smirked and added, "Maybe a studio apartment, if you're lucky." The guests laughed politely. My mom stirred her gravy a little faster, like that had somehow smoothed things over. But no one asked what kind of house. No one asked how. They just assumed, like they always had, that my life was small, that my dreams were laughable. I didn't answer, didn't argue, didn't defend myself. I just smiled. Not a big smile, just enough to hold back the fire building in my chest. They had no idea. They had no idea what I'd been building while they weren't paying attention. They had no clue who I was outside of this dinner table. And in that moment, something clicked. I wasn't there to explain myself anymore. I was there to watch their faces when the truth finally hit. But I wasn't ready to give them that yet. Not tonight. Not on their terms. So I picked up my fork and let their laughter echo in the background like distant thunder. Because what comes next? Let's just say they never saw it coming. That dinner, that laugh, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was just the latest in a lifetime of echoes. Echoes that started long before I ever picked up a paintbrush. Growing up in the Bennett household was like growing up in a museum. Quiet, polished, and always on display. Everything had a place. Everyone had a role. Victoria, she was the prodigy. Firstborn. Debate champion. Science fair winner. Straight A's varsity. Everything. If she sneezed, Dad clapped. And me, I was the quiet one. The girl with paint on her fingers and daydreams in her notebook. The one who didn't speak unless spoken to. In our house, discipline was more important than dreams. Structure meant safety, and success was a straight line, good grades, good college, good job, preferably with benefits and a retirement plan. Art was a distraction, a waste of time. My dad made that clear the day he caught me doodling in the margins of my homework. He picked up the paper, stared at it, then crumpled it without saying a word. Just dropped it in the trash and walked away. Later that night, he said, "You're too smart to waste your time scribbling." And that was that. So I learned to hide it. When other kids were playing video games, I was hiding in my closet with a flashlight and a sketch pad. Drawing girls with the winged sunsets, I'd never seen dresses I wished I could wear. Sometimes I'd draw my family, but without their faces. I didn't know how to sketch eyes that looked at me like I mattered. The only person who ever noticed was Grandma Della. She'd come visit from Louisiana every spring, always smelling like cinnamon and lavender. She'd see my paint-stained fingers and smile like it was the best thing in the world. "You've got magic in your hands, baby girl," she'd whisper. "Don't let them talk you out of it." She bought me my first set of watercolors, kept it hidden under my bed in a tin lunchbox. Said it was our secret. Grandma Della believed in me when no one else even looked. But she passed away when I was 15. After that, the only voice in the house was Dad's, and his was louder than ever. Victoria got a scholarship to Yale. I got grounded for skipping PE to sit in the library and sketch. When she won a statewide debate championship, Dad framed the newspaper article, hung it right in the hallway for every guest to see. I remember staring at it one night, wondering what it felt like to be framed for something other than silence. I wasn't angry, not yet. Back then, I just thought maybe I wasn't enough. That maybe if I tried harder, spoke less, followed the path laid out for me, I could earn a seat at that table too. But no matter what I did, it was always her name they said first. Victoria this, Victoria that. And me, I was just the other one. So I stopped trying to be seen. And I started planning a life where I didn't need their spotlight. Because even then, deep down, I knew one day I'd build something they couldn't ignore, something they wouldn't understand until it was too late. And I was done asking for permission. By the time I hit 22, I was living in a shoebox apartment above a laundromat off East 6th in Austin. The walls were thin, the AC barely worked, and the ceiling leaked when it rained. But it was mine. Barely. During the day, I worked the front counter at a coffee shop on South Lamar. In the afternoons, I helped a local muralist clean brushes and prep walls for community projects. At night, I stocked shelves at a warehouse on the edge of town graveyard shift, 10 to 6. My hands were blistered, my back hurt constantly, and sleep was something I borrowed in 3-hour chunks. But in the in-between moments, I painted. On the floor, on the fire escape, on the backs of old pizza boxes when I ran out of canvas. Because that was the only place I still felt like me. I started a tiny Etsy shop called Raylight Studio. No profile picture, no name, just the art. I didn't want pity customers. I wanted to know if the work could stand on its own. It didn't explode. Not at first, but a few people found it, left kind comments, favorited items, and for the first time in years, I felt something click. Like maybe I wasn't crazy for still believing in this. Back home, though, I was still the disappointment. My parents never asked how I was doing. They'd send group texts about Victoria's latest legal win, or her new downtown condo 2-bedroom skyline view. Meanwhile, I was budgeting between toilet paper and bus fare. Every time I came home for a holiday, it was the same story. Victoria would roll in wearing heels that probably cost more than my rent. Talk about corporate deals, international clients climbing the partner track. My mom would glow like she'd raised royalty. And then there was me. Faded jeans, calloused hands, showing up with a bottle of wine I got on clearance just so I wouldn't come empty-handed. One night, at a family barbecue, my dad introduced us to his new neighbor from across the street. Some big-shot engineer. He smiled, shook Victoria's hand like she was a senator. Then he turned to me, paused, and asked, "And what do you do?" Before I could answer, my dad laughed and said, "Well, we've got one real success in the family and one dreamer." Just like that. Like it was a joke, like I wasn't even standing there. The man laughed. Everyone laughed. Except me. I smiled. Because if I didn't smile, I would have broken right there in front of them. I went home that night, dropped my keys on the kitchen floor, and cried into a paint-stained pillow. Cried until my ribs hurt. Cried for every time I swallowed their words instead of spitting them back. And then I got up. I opened my sketchbook, and I started painting. Not for them, not for validation, but for me. A week later, I got a notification on my phone. One of my paintings sold. $495, plus shipping. I stared at the screen like it was a hallucination. Refreshed the page 3 times. Checked my bank account just to be sure. And then I sat on the floor surrounded by chipped paint jars and crumpled paper towels. And I laughed. Not bitter, not broken. Just amazed. Because for the first time in my life, somebody saw value in the one thing they always told me was worthless. And that was the beginning. That first sale, it lit a fire I didn't know I still had. Over the next 2 years, I worked like someone had hit a timer. Paint, pack, ship, sleep, repeat. Raylight Studio became Ray Studio. I dropped the light because nothing about what I was building was small anymore. I started experimenting with minimalism, soft watercolors, empty space, and emotional tones that spoke louder than words ever could. I posted quietly, no face, no voice, just the work. And then it happened. One of my pieces, a stormy blue and gold abstract, got reposted by a lifestyle influencer with 3 million followers. Just like that, my world exploded. Within 48 hours, I had over 25,000 new followers. My Etsy store sold out. Emails flooded in brands. Buyers collabs. At first, I thought it was a scam. I remember staring at my inbox, blinking like it might disappear. It didn't. A home decor brand out of Portland reached out for a collab. Then a boutique in Chicago asked for exclusive prints. A print shop in Toronto offered to manufacture and fulfill international orders. And just like that, I wasn't just an artist anymore. I was a business. I used the first big paycheck to move out of my shared apartment. No more midnight arguments with roommates or masking tape on the windows. I signed a lease on a sleek studio loft in East Austin, high ceilings, white walls, concrete floors. The kind of space I'd only ever seen on Pinterest. Every morning I woke up to sunlight pouring in and blank canvases waiting. I reinvested everything. No vacations, no new clothes, no nonsense. Just paint, product packaging, and strategy. I learned how to code a website, built an online storefront from scratch, taught myself SEO, email marketing, and branding. I stopped watching TV, stopped scrolling, started building. And somewhere in that blur of hustle, I met her. Zara Cheng. We were both showcasing at an outdoor art market near downtown. She had this clean modern booth with hand-drawn blueprints and mood boards pinned like art. She was an interior designer, smart, sharp, and unshakably confident. We clicked instantly. She bought 2 prints, then circled back an hour later just to talk color theory. 3 weeks later, she emailed me with a wild idea, a capsule collaboration for a home decor brand she was pitching. We met at a coffee shop to brainstorm. 3 hours turned into 6. By the time the shop closed, we had napkins covered in sketches, palettes, product ideas. She got me. Not just the art, but the grind, the pressure, the vision. Zara became my partner not in the romantic sense, but in the trenches. Design deals, deadlines. She handled interiors and business dev. I handled creative direction and product lines. We pushed each other, lifted each other, and we kept it all quiet. I didn't post the pictures of us, didn't tag the brand deals, didn't even update my family. Because after years of being talked down to, I didn't owe them a headline. They had their version of who I was, and I had no interest in correcting it. Not yet. I wanted to build something so undeniable it would speak louder than any explanation ever could. And when it did, when they finally saw it, they wouldn't just be surprised. They'd be speechless. 2 years had passed since that night I sold my first painting. And now, I was walking into another family dinner, same house, same people, but not the same me. This time the celebration wasn't for me. It was for Victoria's latest promotion senior partner at her law firm. Of course it was. Zara came with me. She wore a crisp white blouse, simple gold jewelry hair pulled back into a sleek bun. She didn't need to prove anything, and that made her presence even louder. When we walked in, the room shifted. Not in awe, but in calculation. Victoria spotted us first. Her eyes did a quick scan, head to toe. Then she smirked like she already knew everything. "Savannah," she said, voice sugar-coated with sarcasm. "You brought a +1. That's new." I smiled. "This is Zara." Victoria nodded once, clearly unimpressed, and turned back to regaling the room with stories of international clients and luxury real estate ventures. "Closed a condo deal in Paris last week," she said, casually sipping her wine. "Have a lead on a villa in Spain. Might fly out next month if the firm clears it." My parents beamed like she'd just won the Nobel Prize. I sat quietly, letting them talk, letting them soak in the version of success they understood. And then, between bites of dry roast beef and forced laughter, I said it. "I've been house hunting." It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, just a calm, simple statement dropped in the middle of their champagne stories. My dad didn't even look up from his plate. He snorted. "You're better off renting forever, kiddo." My mom chuckled lightly like it was some harmless joke. Victoria leaned forward with a grin. "Ooh, looking for a cute little artist loft. Or maybe you'll paint murals on other people's walls." The table laughed. Not a loud laugh, just enough to remind me where I stood. I reached for my water, smiled politely, and then I felt it. My phone buzzed under the table. I glanced down. One notification. Mortgage approved. $3.2 million. Austin Hillside. Status finalized. I stared at the screen. Just for a second, long enough to let the moment settle into my bones. I had done it while they were busy mocking me across their polished dinner plates. I had just bought a home they couldn't even imagine. Not with their money, not with their status, not with all their degrees and promotions and practical plans. I slid the phone back into my purse, still smiling, still silent. They didn't deserve the reveal. Not yet. Let them laugh. Let them believe I was chasing shadows. Because soon, very soon, they'd realize I wasn't chasing anything. I was building. And what I had just built, it was going to shake everything they thought they knew. 2 weeks after that dinner, I stood barefoot in a house I never thought I'd own. Correction, at a house I bought in full cash. No cosigner, no mortgage, just years of silent work licensing contracts, brand deals, and art that finally spoke for itself. It sat high above Lake Austin, 3 stories of glass, steel, and sunlight. Floor-to-ceiling windows, gallery lighting, a rooftop garden overlooking the water. It didn't feel like a house, it felt like a manifestation. Like I had cracked open my chest and built a structure out of every moment they told me I couldn't. Zara was the first one I showed. She walked through the main hall in silence, then turned and said, "This doesn't just look like your art. It feels like your art." Together, we designed every inch. Velvet textures that hugged the walls, bespoke color palettes that changed with the light, sculptural furniture, statement lighting, custom shelving that held nothing but white space and framed originals. No clutter, no apologies. Just proof. It wasn't just a housewarming, it was a reckoning. I didn't want to be subtle. I didn't want to ease them in. I wanted them to walk through those doors and realize they had no idea who I was. So I sent out invitations. Elegant off-white cardstock, gold-embossed letters. No name, no address. Just one sentence. "Come see where art can take you." I sent one to my parents, one to Victoria, no explanation. No RSVP request. The day of the party, the house buzzed with energy. Designers, collaborators, collectors, people who'd believed in Ray's studio before the world caught on. Music floated through the space, smooth jazz soft enough to hear your own thoughts. Servers passed wine and hors d'oeuvres on black trays. The sun started to dip over the lake, and golden light filled the entire home. Then the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my parents and Victoria. My dad looked around, eyebrows pulled tight. "Whose place is this?" he asked. Before I could speak, he gestured toward Zara, who stood across the room arranging a centerpiece. "Yours," he said to her, nodding. "You must be doing well." Zara didn't say anything. Victoria let out a short laugh. "You dating someone rich now, Savannah?" I smiled. Just smiled. Didn't flinch, didn't explain, didn't defend. Instead, I reached for a bottle of wine, poured them each a glass, and gestured toward the main room. "Make yourselves at home," I said. They walked slowly like the floor might crack under them. My mom paused at a painting on the wall, an original from my very first collection. She tilted her head. "This looks familiar," she said. I didn't answer. My dad stepped out onto the rooftop patio, staring at the skyline like it might offer answers. Victoria trailed her fingers along the marble kitchen island. No one said it out loud, but I saw it in their faces. Confusion, suspicion, doubt. They thought I was someone's assistant, someone's girlfriend, someone's lucky +1. I let them sit in that silence, because the longer they sat in it, the louder the truth would hit. And when it finally did, they wouldn't know what to say. But I did. And that moment, it was almost here. The room had filled out by sunset. Soft lighting, laughter, the clink of wine glasses, people mingling between canvases and cocktail trays like they were walking through a living gallery. I stood off to the side watching it all, my clients, my collectors, my collaborators. And then I saw them, my parents and Victoria, sitting on the edge of the conversation, completely out of their element, eyes scanning the room like they were still trying to piece it together. I waited, let it simmer. Then I picked up my glass and tapped it lightly with a fork. The room quieted. I stepped to the center of the staircase and looked out at a sea of faces. Some familiar, some not. All of them part of the story I had written when no one else believed in the pages. I smiled. "Thank you all for coming," I said, "to celebrate my new home." There was a pause, and then a shift. My dad gave a nervous laugh. "Wait," he said, pointing upward as if trying to confirm with the ceiling. "This is your house." I nodded once, calm, steady. "I bought it," I said. "All of it. My art built this. The room froze. Actually froze. My mom's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. Her face turned pale like someone had pulled the color straight out of her skin. Victoria's mouth dropped open. Then her glass slipped from her hand and shattered across the marble floor. No one moved. My dad cleared his throat. How, he stammered. What kind of art sells a house like this? I tilted my head slightly. The kind you said would never amount to anything. Silence. A long echoing silence. And then clapping. It started with one woman in the back, then another, then someone near the kitchen. Within seconds, the room erupted. Some of them were longtime buyers, people who'd followed my work from Etsy to international licensing. They knew this moment wasn't just a reveal. It was a revolution. I scanned the room, letting the applause wash over me, but my eyes landed on my family. They weren't clapping. They were staring, shaken. Victoria's confidence had drained from her face. My mom looked down like she didn't know where to put her hands. And my dad, he just stood there, still, like a statue in a place he didn't belong anymore. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for their approval. I wasn't chasing their praise. I wasn't hoping for a single kind word. I had everything I needed, and they were standing in it, surrounded by it, breathing it in. This wasn't just a housewarming. It was the end of their version of me, and the beginning of mine. 3 weeks. That's how long the silence lasted after the housewarming. No texts, no emails, no phone calls. And honestly, it was peaceful. For the first time in my life, I wasn't bracing for their opinions, wasn't shrinking to make them comfortable, wasn't hoping they'd finally see me. I was free, until the calls started. First, it was my mom. Middle of the afternoon number lit up my phone like a flare. I let it ring, no voicemail, no second call. Then 2 days later, it rang again. Then again. I didn't answer, because I knew that voice. And I knew it wasn't calling out of pride. It was calling out of panic. The knock came a week after that. I opened the door and found Victoria standing there. Mascara streaked, eyes red, hair still styled, but not fresh. She looked off, shaken, small. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. And then she broke. Her voice cracked as soon as she spoke. Her law firm had collapsed, full-blown scandal. Something about internal fraud and a client cover-up. She wasn't involved directly, but she was close enough to fall with it. Her name was in the headlines. Her job was gone. Her reputation in pieces. But that wasn't the worst part. She had poured everything into a side investment. A luxury condo flip gone wrong. And my parents, they co-signed the loan. Now they were on the hook for over $500,000. She looked at me with glassy eyes and said, "Savannah, we need help." I didn't respond. She kept going. "You've got money, a house. We're not asking for everything, just something." And then I heard it. Behind her, my dad's voice. They had come together. He stepped into view slower than usual. Shoulders not quite as square. Eyes tired. For the first time in my life, he didn't sound like a man who owned every room he walked into. He looked at me and said, "We underestimated you." I held his gaze. No emotion, no rage, just clarity. "No," I said. "You erased me. You mocked me, doubted me, ignored me, and I rebuilt myself without you." Victoria tried to step forward, but I didn't move. My voice stayed calm. "Final. Get off my property." Neither of them spoke. They just stood there blinking, like they didn't recognize the woman in front of them. And maybe they didn't, but I did. For the first time ever, I saw me clearly, and I was done being their shadow. The last time I heard from my parents was 6 months ago. A single text from my mom. It said, "We're proud of you." We just didn't know how to say it. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, just peace, because I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't holding on to their silence, their laughter, or their doubt. I had let it all go. And in that space, I built everything. Ray Studio went global. Exhibitions in New York, London, Tokyo. Our latest collection sold out in under an hour. We partnered with a museum for a permanent installation. Zara's still by my side. Creative director, business, strategist, best friend. We don't talk about the past much. We don't need to. We're too busy building the future. Most days I walk through my house, barefoot, coffee in hand, sunlight pouring through those glass walls. The same ones they once said I'd never live behind. And every step is surrounded by my art. Pieces from every chapter, canvas by canvas, the story of who I became. Not for them, not to prove anything. But because I refuse to disappear, I refuse to shrink. And now I live in a world I painted myself. One morning, I stood in the entryway, staring at a piece from my very first collection. The same colors, the same brushstrokes, but this time framed in gold. And I said out loud, just to myself, they tried to shrink me, but I painted a world too big for them to fit in. And that's the truth. To anyone listening, don't wait for them to believe in you. Don't water yourself down just to be digestible. Don't beg for a seat at their table. Build your own. Carve your space. Craft your voice. Create the life they never imagined you could. And then make them watch. Because revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's just showing up in silence and owning everything they said you never would.